Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Reviews and the Orville Season 2, Episode 2, Primal Urges just aired tonight on Fox. And this is one that I feel was a true return to form over last week, predominantly because I didn't care much for last week's episode. But what's great is I got it wrong, by the way. So I thought last week's episode was an episode they shot during Season 1, but then held to air now. No. This episode is actually shot during Season 1, and it totally makes sense. This was a Season 1 episode. This was clearly something that was made during the production of Season 1 because the humor was definitely there. Never mind a couple glaring differences. Like there was a line referencing Gelosia, but not knowing what Gelosia was, and not even really getting any of that right either. It was talking about Moclan culture and dealing with like their births and their deaths and like what happens on their birthday, right? Even though the previous week we know what happens on a Moclan's birthday, they piss off a cliff. That was the episode. That was the episode. Now this time around it was a much simpler episode, very much scaled down. It was a Bortis episode and one that I really liked. There are going to be a fair amount of spoilers here, just so you guys know. But what I enjoyed about the episode was it dealt with Bortis on a very personal level. It dealt with his addiction to pornography, which was fascinating. That was the core aspect of the story for the first 2/3 of it, or even the first 75%. Really? And even at the end of it, it still was all about Bortis and just how much strange he was cooking up in that simulator. I was a little taken aback at first with how much homoerotic stuff they showed us on television. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with that. There's not, but it's more like this is Fox. And they've got half-naked Moclans that are talking about wanting to, basically get down and bone. And that was the whole thing. I mean, quite literally, this was a Bortis episode. So him and Klyden are having marital problems because Bortis works all the time. Klyden wants to take part in the sexual event. He wants to make love. Bortis isn't feeling it because Bortis isn't spending all of his time in a simulator. In a simulator that has been fulfilling his needs with particular types of scenarios. The same types of scenarios one might expect to find on Pornhub.com. And this is taking up his evening, taking up his night, and he has basically been well, just kind of like not really giving it to Klyden, and Klyden is feeling pretty bad. Then Klyden gets upset and plunges a dagger into Bortis's chest, wanting to kill him, and that's the Moclan way of divorcing people. I have a feeling if that was actually taken here in Earth, that was part of our culture, it would make for some lot easier marriages, if you know what I mean. We see a lot fewer of them. There would be a weird reality trend revolving around that, but still it'd be very interesting nonetheless. So what we have is a situation where, Bortis is trying to, I guess, deal with it, and they deal with it by going to couples counseling, to which case we discover that Bortis is actually mad at Klyden for how Klyden didn't defend Topa when they were dealing with the Moclan tribunal about whether or not to give Topa a sex change. And again, this ties into a theme from season 1. This to me was a far better episode from the last week because it dealt with, again, a touchy issue. This time around talking about pornography addiction as well as talking about family problems, marital problems, and what could drive people apart. The fact that Bortis resented Klyden over Klyden's failure to defend Topa was just fascinating to me. Now, they did reshoot a couple scenes from the episode, from my understanding. It had everything to do with, I think, aging Topa, because, again, they've magically aged Topa, and that hasn't been something that's been discussed at all. So that's something I'm still a little bit kind of with. But the other part of the story is they're watching, I think, a planet called Nixia basically evaporate. A sun's going to take it out. A sun's going to kill it. The planet doesn't have anyone living on it. So they're just there to watch it happen as part of the exploratory mission of the Orville. But when they discover that there might be some type of gas that they need, fuel for the Orville on the planet, they start looking into whether maybe there might be anyone there, and they discover that there is actually a society of people deep underground, and there's 75 of them left, so they start working on trying to go and rescue them. Unfortunately, when Isaac and Bortis head to the planet's surface, they realize that the acceleration of the planet's destruction has been increased, and therefore they're not actually going to be able to save anybody. Or save, I should say, more than 30. They're only going to be able to save 30, and so the other 45 people have to be left to their death. And that, of course, was something that we don't see take place on screen. We don't see the lottery take place, but we see the aftermath of the lottery, where the minister, who could have saved herself using her political power and political station in order to do that, sacrificed herself, but her husband and what appear is her son head off to be saved. However, she never said goodbye to the kid, and the kid never said mommy. So I don't know what it is. Could be a thing. And the whole time they're trying to, stop a virus that Bortis had put into the system of the Orville when he was uploading his bootleg pornography. Pornography that was given to him by a species who's also a lieutenant on the Orville that we have never seen before. It was a weird kind of Venus flytrap type creature that was very interesting, and I'd like to see more from him down the road. And what was great about that was when Bortis goes into this last simulation, it's basically like a lakeside scene, very pretty, very serene, and a whole bunch of half-naked Mocklins that are quite adventurous. And the best part about that was he ends up, they have to go in there in order to fight the virus, and the whole time the Mocklins are trying to hook up with Dan and John, and then eventually Isaac, and John just keeps slapping their hands away. He's getting Me Too'd across the board. And they end up saving the day, almost destroy the ship, but then Ed realizes that Bortis has got it. Bortis is learning, and they don't fire him or get him in any trouble, which I find to be very weird, considering the damage that was done to the ship, the near cost of 300 lives, and the near cost of his own to get the 30 people out is actually what saved him. So that's one of those things. But ultimately, the end of the episode rolls around, and Klyden and Bortis have reunited their family unit. And maybe who knows, they'll go into one of those particular those particular scenarios together, spice up the love life a little bit, right? Who knows? Maybe that will be referenced later on. But this was a much better episode than on Sunday. Again, a lot of people really enjoyed season 1's episode. They liked the way of it. I didn't as much. But this episode was very much season 1, and it was very funny in a few parts. But it didn't rely on the humor as much as it did the drama. And the drama, again, dealing with the issue at hand of addiction. And what I really like, there's a moment there where Bortis is talking to Isaac, and he explains the addiction and succumbing to that desire, and then the hollow feeling afterward. And that was a very, very, very concise way of talking about addiction. Not just pornography, but addiction in general. So it's one of those things where I look at it and I go, yeah, that was a solid episode. I really happy the show is back. Look forward to next Thursday. And so I leave it to you, your thoughts, your opinion. Let me know down in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been $3 Reviews. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.